So just a quick review of what we're going to do today. First, we're going to just talk through what CPQ is, what it's all about. Then we'll get into why the DriveWorks CPQ solution is special and different. And then we'll run through a demo on my machine, and finally wrap up with a review of some resources that are available to learn more. And of course, leave some time for some Q&A at the end. On that note, if you do have questions along the way, you will be muted the whole time. But you can type your questions in the question box and go to webinar, and I will review those at the end and pull from those to address the Q&A. Okay. And before we get started, just a quick bit on TPM. TPM is a big player in the Southeast region of the US for all things Autodesk and SolidWorks, in addition to other related products and services, all things printing and graphics, 3D printing, and associated services and hardware. So we're pretty comprehensively involved in the engineering, architectural, construction, and manufacturing space. We approach those businesses from all angles. So things like DriveWorks and automation integration is kind of a natural place for us to kind of stay on the forefront of technology and continue to find better ways to provide value to our customers. Okay, so diving into what is CPQ. Some of you may be familiar with the term or not. CPQ stands for Configure Price Quotes, or what might also just be known colloquially as a configurator. Okay, but at its core, a CPQ system does just perform at the least, the ability to configure something, a product, assign it a price, and deliver a quote. Okay, now that all sounds fine and good, but perhaps you've worked in the space that involves combining, or in the intersection of business systems, the manufacturing environment, and configurable product. You know that configuring, pricing, and quoting is not actually a simple matter. And as a result, CPQ systems have come to be and evolved over time. The idea of a CPQ is nothing new. In fact, a CPQ system could just be a very comprehensive Excel spreadsheet, or much more. But at its core, typically CPQs kind of can act as like option managers, okay? And they tend to function by sort of enhancing the order entry process. If you have a means of entering a sales order, a CPQ or a configurator can just sort of layer on and provide a little bit more functionality and customization to the order entry process. Typically, an ERP or a system like QuickBooks or similar, they have the ability to enter an order, select an item, but at the end of the day, there isn't a whole lot of inbuilt functionality to truly capture a product if it is configurable. Okay. A big driver over the years that's kind of led the technology over the last decade or so has just simply been to integrate with an ERP system. So if you have your ERP sales order entry interface, if there's some way to enhance that interface, that was sort of the big thing for a long time. Okay, kind of in parallel, or as a result of it being kind of ERP focused, any sort of CPQ solution has been a consideration really of finance, IT, and or sales. Okay, with at the end of the day, very little consideration for the actual design process or for manufacturing as a whole. So it's traditionally been a pretty siloed functionality. Okay, how are those systems typically deployed? Well, these days it's common for an ERP system to have its own optional module for handling configuration. Okay, so it's a bit of an upsell. Or there are third-party systems like Explogix or Configure One that are standalone systems, pretty significant pieces of software that are nice, but again, they are very focused on that interface with the ERP. And again, layering on top of the order entry process. Or there's the old do-it-yourself hodgepodge approach, which you build your system out of whatever you have access to, whatever your in-house folks are familiar with. What we see often is that is some form of Excel, maybe some Access or other database, and some macros, and it ends up being a one-person sort of specialty project on the side, and it becomes very, very complicated and cumbersome, and end up getting stuck. Or it's something that's outsourced, is custom programmed, custom created just for you, and of course, as a result, your utilization of the system is really constrained to that outsource effort. Okay, so sort of the deficiencies that have traditionally remained as a result of all that is that at the end of the day, if a configurator is just a list manager, there's really very limited opportunity to create the structure, the logic, the formatting, and everything else that you think might be perfect for your business and your product. So maybe the configurator itself is configurable, but they definitely tend not to be customizable. Okay. Furthermore, there's no real connection between that configurator workspace and the ERP and your underlying CAD data. So if you have a configurable product, you are most likely using a CAD system to design it and come up with the technical content, to produce drawings, to produce CAM data, whatever it is. That's like the real good stuff that the business operates on, yet there's no connection between that system and your CPQ. So really, there tends to be limited downstream utility from CPQ and beyond. Okay. Furthermore, from a 3D graphics standpoint, it's either limited or rudimentary, and typically not real time. And I'll show you what real time means in DriveWorks. And of course, often these systems are sold not just to sell the software, but also to sell service. And so there's sort of an implicit reliance on a third party to not just implement, but provide ongoing support and future development. So again, you're kind of handcuffing yourself to and your destiny to another party. So let's compare those deficiencies to what we're going to see in the DriveWorks CPQ solution. So what we'll see is that it is 100% absolutely customizable in every possible way. It is intrinsically linked to SolidWorks, so your modeling environment is directly linked to everything else that CPQ can touch. Native within the DriveWorks environment is the ability to produce high quality, rich 3D content that is real time and dynamic. DriveWorks is really the only platform out there that you could consider do it yourself. So it's quite possible to establish it on an in-house basis. And furthermore, DriveWorks has the native ability to just integrate with just about any other system. Okay. So let's take a step back and consider this whole CPQ concept within the broader context of what DriveWorks is as a whole. Okay. What we like at TPM, we tend to think of DriveWorks as a collection of 3 pillars of functionality. Okay, the 3 main areas that DriveWorks provides a wealth and deep depth and breadth of functionality that is, they're all independently actionable and usable, or they can be used together in any combination to create a much more powerful system. So that first pillar is design automation for SolidWorks. And again, there's this concept of a configurator and CPQ, and then there's what we call everything else. And again, this is all things integrations, connections, putting your data to work, and truly making a comprehensive platform to run the business on. And in effect, it puts DriveWorks kind of in the middle of everything else. Now, so just understand that today we are going to focus on CPQ, but this is all happening in the context of a much greater capability set. Okay, and just kind of blasting through real quick to understand all that is in the CAD automation space. Kind of the first task of creating design intent. So for that configurable product, it's capturing all the essence of the product, cataloging company policies and design criteria and know-how and all that stuff. So it's creating that design intent, connecting that design intent to your CAD system, in this case SolidWorks, in order to produce all the SolidWorks files that are needed. Okay, that whole process can be controlled by a form. The form is custom built. We'll see more about that in a few minutes. But that's how you kind of design guide your design process. That is all underpinned by the ubiquitous rule builder in DriveWorks, which is where all meaningful logic is created and implemented. And it's important to note right now that this is kind of an example rule, not a real rule, but this is like example syntax, a simple if statement. So, even if you just have some basic experience with writing a formula in Excel, you can kind of get the gist pretty quickly of what this rule is all about. Point being is that there is no actual code to interface in. This is about as complicated as it gets to manage all this sophistication. Okay, so easy, very accessible, low code to no code environment. And that applies to other things like building a process to control any given activity in DriveWorks. And this, again, there's no code going on here. This is WYSIWYG stuff. You use your mouse to drag and drop, make connections, and anywhere you need to imply or impart logic, you're doing so with a rule that looks something like that. Okay. Furthermore, we can create workflows to control how your business operates at a high level. What are the exact steps for managing a quote? How does a quote get turned into an order? Who needs to be notified? Who gets the email? Where does the data need to go? Oh, do you need to create a SolidWorks file or not? All that stuff that gets bundled into the creation of a workflow that is done again through DriveWorks in a no-code type scenario. Once all that is in place, you can then start connecting to all your other systems. Okay, so we can do that with all sorts of text-based data formats, all sorts of databases. We have add-in plugin options to connect to other popular third-party systems. The result of all this is that DriveWorks ends up again being in the middle. Okay, and all of your other business systems kind of can go through it. So DriveWorks can become the brain. It can become a very intelligent, meaningful piece of middleware, okay, that all other systems go through. Now, this is particularly important, again, if you're a manufacturer of configurable product. If that's the case, you understand the complexities of all this data. You're not just buying a widget, putting the widget on the shelf, selling the widget, shipping the widget. That widget can be 1,000 different things on any given day, and there's all sorts of extra data and content that comes along with that. Okay, so today we're talking about CPQ. You can think of CPQ as just another peripheral piece of functionality that directly connects to all things that is DriveWorks. Okay. All right, before we get into the live demo, let me just talk a little bit about what we can look forward to, what to look out for, and things to think about along the way. What I'm going to show you is almost all out-of-the-box functionality, although I will point out example opportunities for that 100% customization, because it will be, those options are everywhere. The out-of-the-box functionality, we're going to have the ability to administer orders, that being creating them from the quote step and managing, pushing them along all the way through shipping. We are going to introduce the idea of managing a standard product offering. You can think of that as a catalog, a static catalog, or even highly custom, highly configurable products, all within the same system. Okay, I'm going to point out various opportunities to create integrations with your other systems. In this case, it might be a CRM or an ERP. such that when you are interfacing with the DriveWorks CPQ, all your other systems are updating as needed when needed. Okay, all this will be happening through a browser. It'll be local on my machine. So this might represent like an internal use case where, you know, folks in the factory or your design team or an in-house sales team needs to access the system. But that same browser could exist on a customer's machine, distributor's machine, or out in the public domain for anyone to use. So it can be, you can think of this as for internal use or external use or both. And I'll give you kind of a bit of a feel for what that might be like. And again, I will point out all the customizable stuff along the way. Furthermore, kind of an important aspect of any modern business system these days is having the ability to actually step back and take a look at how things are going. Okay, it's one thing to be able to use a system, but it's another to actually get actionable information, helpful reports, graphics, KPIs, all that stuff. So a intrinsic ability of the CPQ solution in DriveWorks is having dashboards and KPIs kind of present throughout. And again, I'll kind of point out how that is customizable to suit. Okay. And again, these KPIs can feature being integrated with other systems, whether they be online or in-house. They can be simple. I'll show you some very simple ones, but they can also be, you know, maybe of moderate complexity and sophistication, or maybe your business is just really complicated and you need to see it all real time, all the time, and you just want this present on a big screen in the factory or you know, on everyone's screens and sales office, whatever it is. The point is that it's customizable to your liking. Okay, so I'm going to hop over we'll just exit the presentation here and move over to the actual demo. Okay. So again, we are looking at my browser. In this case, it is, I believe it's Chrome. Okay, you can see that this is all happening locally, but this could be, you know, yourcompany.com or configure.tpm.com. You choose kind of the domain or the subdomain that you might want to host your system on, if in fact you want it to be externally facing or available to the public. So it would be typical to have a login system of some sort, which is being shown here. And then boom, just like that, we are now inside of the DriveWorks CPQ. So everything that you're seeing rendered inside the browser is a product of DriveWorks, and I'll show you what I mean by that. But everything from the colors, the buttons, the graphics, the position of all this stuff, that is in effect controllable to your liking. Okay, so for the sake of this presentation, I set up just a basic demo environment just to simulate in a very simple way what a dashboard might look like in any given manufacturing setting. Okay, so first of all, I logged in as an admin as opposed to logging in, let's say, as a salesperson. As you'll see right away, the salesperson can only see salesperson stuff, as opposed to admin. I gave that role privileges to see everything. So the first thing to understand is that the concept of permissions and security and such, that's all native and ready to go and deploy in DriveWorks. So as an admin, I get to see everything. And sort of the main interface here is just a very user-friendly kind of dashboard-like environment. Okay, so let's just see what a salesperson might want to see. So they come in here and they have access to all sorts of salesy type stuff. So they can come in and check out all the accounts. Okay, here's a list of accounts. These accounts are fictitious and sort of live internally to my deployment, but it would be typical to have this hooked up to a CRM or an ERP system such that you don't have duplicate data. right? And so anytime you interface with CPQ system in DriveWorks, you're interfacing with the latest set of accounts with all the right information, and just really implementing that idea of the single source of truth. So if all of your account data, you want that to live in some other system, great, keep it there, but we can pull it into our CPQ solution as needed, okay? So we can come here and add an account if we want to, or not. We have a way to just check out accounts that are associated with accounts, contacts associated with accounts. We can check out quotes, okay? We can look at orders, we can see what's been shipped. And I just created some dummy orders in here just to have something to look at. Or we can administer a catalog, okay? So we have access to all of our items in the system. We can edit those items, whether it be just kind of like generic item info, particular images. Pricing is handled slightly differently. That's in a price list, and that price list can be in various currencies. There's all sorts of sophistication to apply to price lists. And then we can establish catalogs. Okay, so all this sales administration type stuff I've made available as to a salesperson because they've been deemed entitled to actually manage and manipulate that type of data. Again, this price list might be coming from another system. The list of items, this could be pulling from some other database. All that stuff is up to you. So great, let's actually start to see this in action. So let's go ahead and create a new quote. Okay, we're just going to give it a name. We'll call it CPQ webinar is the name of the order. I'll pick an account. These are just, again, I don't have a CPQ or a CRM solution integrated for the sake of the demo. I just created some imaginary fictitious customers. I'm going to pick a currency. Okay, save the record. And now we start to add some items. This is where the notion of a catalog, the pricing, and the price list all start to converge. Okay, so we add an item. Here is our digital catalog that has various categories of items already set up. So this company, I've got TPM. We're with TPM, but we're pretending today to be a household construction supply company. Okay, so we can do all your bathroom needs. We can pick a basin. We'll pick that one. In a very static sense, we have all that information that is particular to that item, set a quantity. We have the ability or not, we can hide that, we can add discounts. Because this is attached to our CAD system and we have rendering capabilities, we have nice images of the design. In this case, we also have a 3D preview of the design. That's pretty handy. And there we go, we've added that to the order. Now we can add something else, yada yada. I'm gonna sell them a trash bin while we're at it, add to the order, very nice. That's cool. I mean, that's maybe not blowing anyone's hair back just yet. I mean, there are various systems out there that you can build and order and maybe have cool pictures and renderings and stuff to go along with it all in one system. In fact, that's pretty common stuff in an ERP. So let's pick another type of item, and this is where things are going to get pretty different. So now we just entered another category within our catalog, and these are our custom configurable products that we can put on the same order or the same quotes and process all the same. But things will be different. Let's start with, we've got this custom folding door option. It's going to take a second to load. Again, this is rendering through my browser, and this is why it took a second to load. This is a big difference from what we saw with the prior items that were all very static. You know, you're just picking something out of a catalog and adding it to your basket. This is a whole different world. This is a 100% configurable product set up with a fully featured, content-rich 3D presentation of that product. So it's here, but it's also fully reactive. So we're going to change the size. You can see that changing right in front of you. You want to see what that looks like from the inside of the scene, you can see that happening right in front of you. Back to the outside. Okay. What is going on in here? We will take a step back in a few minutes to describe or give you a little insight into how all this works. But suffice it to say that this is getting this is connecting that CPQ environment, and we're starting to inch closer to that core product data, i.e. your SolidWorks CAD. Okay, so we're gonna go through the guided selling process here. We're gonna select our materials, select the color. We can select some other design options for the door. I don't like that, but I figured it out right away. Oh, look at that, it even moves. I can check out some of the functionality of the product. You know what, I think I want something a little bigger. Go back a few steps. There we go, that looks more like it. So of course, the benefit of the 3D configurator is huge if you are trying to design a configurable product. You are seeing right in front of you the implications of your choices. You don't have to wait to receive a quote or wait 4 days for the CAD department to whip up a custom drawing for you. You can see what you are designing right away, right now. Furthermore, we've got a handy little bit here that's giving us a little summary view. I think we can minimize that. There we go. Pick the color of the hinges. We're going to do white. That's kind of modern looking, I guess. And that's it. So just a basic configuration of this product. Again, it is a demo. So I imagine that your products are probably a lot more complicated. But you know, this configurator system can be, again, is 100% custom and can be built out to be as sophisticated as it needs to be to match your product and match your business needs. Okay, so that's cool in of itself. As you can see, much different environment than just operating a form statically in kind of just a generic way. Very interactive. Okay, now let's say I am actually ready to place this, place an order for this product. I've designed it just the way I want it, and as the customer or maybe as the salesperson, I'm like, you know what, let's do it. I'm ready to order. So before I press this button, I have to introduce a few other aspects of the system, because we're about to take a big jump from kind of the sales domain, and we're going to go into the design, the engineering, and the operations domain right away. Okay, so behind the scenes, we have the actual DriveWorks software. Okay, this is all sitting locally on my computer, but it would be typical to have all these different softwares distributed on your network, on various servers, on various workstations. But for the sake of the demo, we are just going to see it all together right now, real time. So I'm going to place this order. The CPQ system says, great, thanks for adding that. Here's a description of what you asked for. Here's the price. We didn't give you a discount, we're sorry, but carry on with your order as you were. Meanwhile, in the background, DriveWorks says, hey, we just received a new order. Oh, that particular product, that thing needs CAD content generated. So right away, see if I can get it to appear. Come on. Should have maximized it before I started it. Hopefully you can see a little bit here that right away, as fast as my computer can muster, SolidWorks is being automated to create that custom product real time. So perhaps even before I have finished detailing my order, all the technical stuff that's associated with that line item might already be generated. Okay, and I will go ahead and navigate to where all that content is going to be put to give you a quick idea of what sort of stuff to expect. Okay, so automatically behind the scenes, DriveWorks created a brand new folder, created all these subfolders. You can see that's all happening real time. That's happened just now, a minute ago. Here are all the SolidWorks files that are being generated real time. We've got models, we've got hinge hardware, we have drawings that are being created real time, et cetera, et cetera. So, and we'll circle back to that when it's done. It might take a minute to run. Okay. So I hope what you're seeing here is that there is a direct, native, and just implicit connection between that sales environment all the way through to your technical environment and even through to manufacturing. Okay. So that they place an order for a door that's 2,224 millimeters, and has a calculated price. We are going to see those values propagate all the way through the drawing, all the way through the bill of materials, all the way through everything else. So in effect, what's happening is we are creating a digital continuum, okay, of the product that starts from the customer's fingers, potentially, all the way through to shipping, okay? And so that the customer selected 2224 millimeters high, that data is important. We're gonna put it to use, and we're gonna drive it all the way through your total order workflow. And everything that needs to receive that piece of data is going to receive that data in a lights out fashion. So that data does not need to get entered into your CAD system. It does not need to get entered into a drawing. It doesn't have to be re-entered into a BOM. It doesn't have to be re-entered into your CAM system, whatever it is. All that stuff, if that data is available, why not use it and make it available everywhere in the business? And that's the big differentiator for the DriveWorks CPQ. Okay, we're taking the ability to create, introduce design, add design intent for a configurable product, put that into the customer's hands or the salesperson's hands or the distributor's hands, and drive it through the rest of the business. Here's another custom configurator. This is kind of similar concept where we can adjust the dimensions. And we're seeing the product adjust real time. We can choose different colors. We can swap out one type of door for another, etc. We can choose different types of hardware, etc. And we're going to finish the order off. Okay, so that's sort of a day in the life of, let's say, the sales-oriented usage of the CPQ system, but it doesn't end there. So I'm going to produce this order or request this order. Back into DriveWorks, we just saw that the covered order has been recognized. The system's going to say, okay, we received it. This is a custom product. We need to configure against it. Thus, we need to start generating some CAD content. All right. So as far as the salesperson is concerned, that's kind of all they're worried about. But that's not the only person interfacing with the system. What about the engineering manager or a member of the design team? What do they care about in all this? Well, hey, here's a dashboard. Here's a dashboard showing the health of that automation system. At the end of the day, that automation is lights out, but we obviously want to check in on it, perhaps, and understand how it's working. So here's just a quickie dashboard. And again, I whipped this up just for the sake of this demo today. By the way, everything that you see here took me about a day to produce, from scratch all the way to everything that we're seeing here today. We've produced 484 models successfully. We've had no failures. We've produced 25 orders. Oh, as a designer, if I actually need to get back into one of those custom projects and do some testing, I can link that project directly to this interface. What else? We can check out some stats. Okay, everyone likes a good KPI. Here's a sample KPI for the the CAD automation system. We can see what kind of activity we've had on the automation front over a given period of time. We can see which job is in which status of being generated. Up here in this yellow tile, we can see that there are 16 models awaiting our automated system to produce. Okay, so you can think of that as a queue or maybe a bit of a backlog for the automation itself. So again, just sample tiles. Something like this is very simplistic, but in your environment, your engineering manager might say, you know what, I need 5 different tiles, all showing me different things, real time. Oh, by the way, hook that up to Google, hook this up to a statistics website. Whatever you can imagine can be presented through this same interface within the CPQ solution. Furthermore, there's other roles that might have different considerations, like the administrator of this whole system. They might be concerned with, well, who has access to the system? How do I set up my teams? How do I set up my users? Okay, all that functionality is built in to the CPQ solution. So the back end and the system are kind of one and the same in a very user-friendly format. Okay, this is loading up a sub-project, so it does take some time, but you can see here are the basic teams that I set up for the sake of the demo. Okay, and I've given them all different security settings so that, of course, one team member can only see what they are allowed to see. I can administer the catalog. I can administer various settings that underpin the whole CPQ system. And then, as an administrator, I get access to sort of all the back-end settings that control the look and feel of the CPQ. I can adjust all my language settings, translations. If I need to set up additional dashboards or control my dashboards, there's an interface to do that. I can create custom tiles to make my dashboards look fancy. I can create my own KPI system. So whether the KPI is just a basic count of models made today, or the KPI is going out into the internet, retrieving data through a web service and representing it through a chart in front of me, all that is set up again in a very WYSIWYG, just using your mouse and keyboard in a limited fashion type of way, et cetera, et cetera. So again, nothing's all that intimidating, nothing's all that complicated, and all the CPQ functionality is available essentially right out of the box with DriveWorks. Okay. Now let's circle back to that folding door project. Where is it? So let's find the I'm going to open that file up in SolidWorks just to see and prove that that is in fact the same thing that was developed through the configurator. There we go. Door and frame, fully designed, ready to go, as if a designer hand built this from scratch in SolidWorks, but automatically designed behind the scenes. That this door or this frame is what, 197 inches across, is that way for a reason. That this piece of glass is sized and shaped the way it is for a reason. That there are 4 hinges opposed to 3 is that way, all because of that underlying logic that was built into DriveWorks. And that is all a direct result of what the customer, i.e. what I did about 5 minutes ago, selected in that form. Now, does the customer need to know, oh, when the door goes from, let's say, 7 feet to 10 feet, that automatically drives 5 hinges instead of 4? No, we didn't ask the customer, hey, how many hinges do you need? We know as the manufacturer what that spec is. We just need the customer to say, hey, how tall is the door? Or how many sections of it? How much is it going to weigh? If it weighs over a certain amount, then add the extra hinge. Whatever that design logic is, whatever the criteria, the company policy, all that stuff, that was driven into this design implicitly because of DriveWorks. Okay, so I just want to drive home the fact that there is a direct connection possible between all of your technical content and what the customer actually wants. Okay. Beyond just the actual model, we have an assortment of drawings. Okay, let's just kind of save time by not opening it. There's a drawing that might be a top-level assembly drawing. This maybe is a drawing you send to the customer by email. This might be a drawing you send to the molding producer as part of a materials purchase. This might be an assembly drawing, et cetera, et cetera. So just some sample purposes of configurable drawings that have been created, again, as a result of that customer choice. And of course, we made PDFs of the same, so those can be emailed out in a pinch or automatically if you so choose. We didn't just create SolidWorks stuff. Other helpful things like images that can be put to use for any old purpose, either through a website or various documents, such as we've created a Word doc That is let's say the actual formal quote. That formal quote was actually turned into a PDF. If I had the email service hooked up to my demo, this email would have been in my inbox a long time ago saying, hey customer, here's your quote request. Thanks for thinking of us. Again, all without an employee at TPM touching a keyboard once to make that happen. Okay, let's see, I requested a cupboard as well. Here's that in all of its glory. Just like I designed it in the configurator, I've got a folder structure custom to that project. I've got drawings up the wazoo, pictures of the drawings, SolidWorks drawings, PDFs of the drawings, all accomplished within minutes, again, without human hands touching it. It was effectively lights out. So, hopefully you can see what the opportunity is to really control your sales and quoting and marketing practices while directly connecting that to other aspects of the business. Okay. So that was the quickest review of a CPQ system I've ever done. I intentionally kind of kept it high level and brief just to save some time at the end. We got about 15 minutes left for some Q&A. And for folks to chime in and ask any questions. Let's see. And there's actually a few other things that I wanted to review with the group. Just some available resources. If you are interested in what you see here and you want to learn more on your own, there's a lot of content available online already. You can either take note of it now, or we will follow up to the audience with an email with links to all this stuff, and also the opportunity to follow up with us if you want to learn more through us. So just a real quick review of what's out there. We have the, why is that working? There we go. DriveWorks has a dedicated website just for the configurator. From there, there's a data sheet available. There's a link to other types of examples with all sorts of other products throughout industry, truck trailers, HVAC systems, electrical enclosures, oil rigs, you name it. All that can be configured and is ready to go. They have some handy videos on all things CPQ for manufacturing. These are handy. They kind of walk you through a day in the life of each party in your supply chain that might be interested in having access to such a system. So here's what a distributor would see. Here's what a sales team would see. A more in-depth review of what I showed today. And then if you really want to get into the weeds, there are demonstrations of all the technology that DriveWorks has within it that makes everything that I just showed you possible. This is all public. It's driveworkslive.com. Again, this will be part of the email follow-up that we send to you after the presentation. Yada, the data sheet. Okay. So that's it. Again, the world's quickest review of the DriveWorks CPQ. There's a whole lot more to it. And we would encourage you, if you are interested in learning more, reach out to us, either in response to our follow-up email later this week, or you can email me directly at joelhanneman@tpm.com. I'd be happy to schedule a follow-up meeting to show you more about what DriveWorks is all about. Okay, so let's check the question board here to see what we have queued up. Okay, someone has asked, this is kind of a question specific to maybe experienced DriveWorks users. So all things CPQ for DriveWorks, that this is available as an out-of-the-box system. I'll show you what I mean by that. So I'm actually going to open up DriveWorks on my machine. Okay. This is called DriveWorks Administrator. This is the development module. This is where all that design intent is captured, where all your underlying logic is captured, where you build your forms, in whatever fashion you deem necessary. That's where all like the real development work is done. Actually, I will take a few minutes to go through this in a minute. But the question is, how is the CPQ actually delivered through DriveWorks? There is a thing now, a recent development with DriveWorks is something called the Drive app. And this right here is where the out-of-the-box CPQ functionality comes from, okay? And this Drive app, so all this stuff that I'm showing you where you click this button and it goes to there and you get your security systems access here. There's a template of sorts that is kind of underpinning this, and it is, let me put it this way, all this could have been created from scratch, okay? And that kind of leads me to talking about the form environment, okay? So when we run that, I think this is the cupboard, no, this is the picture frame project. This is kind of the back end of it. Okay, this is how we essentially create a form. So we have drop-down menus, we have a picture box, we have a radio button. There's all sorts of stuff. We could add a spin button, we could add another combo box. And so you build a form much like you might create a PowerPoint presentation that you kind of pick the doodad that you want, you add it, you resize it, you can change the text, the pictures, colors, all that stuff. Each one of these form elements is completely customizable through a variety of properties in DriveWorks, okay? So kind of take that concept and leap to what you see here. What you see here is a form that was created by DriveWorks, okay, as a company, because they said, hey, you know what, we understand CPQ, we know what's required, we know what manufacturers of configurable product really need in a CPQ solution. We're just going to go ahead and save everyone a bunch of time and create a system through which each manufacturer can take advantage of that capability right away and customize it to suit. Okay, so the question was, this used to exist as a template and now exists as a Drive app. Okay, it is from a technical standpoint, it is a much easier and stable and kind of future-proof solution. But at the end of the day, it still does just represent a project that has all sorts of forms and intent and graphics and functionality that's kind of been built behind the scenes, ready to implement within literally everything that you saw in this demo, I did within a day. Okay, it's rudimentary because I only spent a day on it. The typical use case by companies that have adopted DriveWorks CPQ, there are very elaborate uses of this very same system. To the extent that this slide here, this is actually I stole this from another presentation that DriveWorks, the company, put on. These are examples of their dashboards that they use as a company. So to put it differently, DriveWorks uses DriveWorks to run DriveWorks as a company, okay? So DriveWorks is not a manufacturing company, they are a software company. But they found, hey, this software that we created, we can use it ourselves to run our business. So all the insight that they need as a software company is being delivered through DriveWorks as that underlying very capable middleware that DriveWorks is. Okay, so that's just kind of one example of many of various ways that DriveWorks can be used. Okay, I think we have another experienced DriveWorks viewer on here referring to Glenn, the CEO of DriveWorks. By the way, a little bit about DriveWorks. The company is approaching 20 years old. It did start as just a company that specialized in SolidWorks automation. This is going back to original kind of rudimentary macros run out of an Excel spreadsheet. And over the decades, they have, of course, taken advantage of all things modern technology, APIs, integrations, and such, and created the preeminent, the best SolidWorks automation tool. And essentially what they have done since then is extend that into other domains within a business. CPQ, today's topic, is one example of one of those extended domains. Okay. Let's see. Next question is looking for a bit more insight on other topics like processes and workflows. Okay. So following along the picture frame project, let me pull that back up in the CPQ solution just so you can see what that means. I don't think we went over I might have timed out here. Okay, here we go. I'll access a quote. Just pick a quote, add an item, and just quickly pull up the picture frame project just so you can see what we're talking about. So that 3D configurator is fully loaded. So this project is all about just designing a custom picture frame. Okay, you can pick the sizes, the type of the molding, etc. But I show you this to you now just so you have some background as to what the form builder, the underlying form builder, how that was used to get to this point. Okay, and so that's what we're looking at here. Let's see, customize results button, the upload pick button, customize button. That's, again, all drag and drop WYSIWYG stuff that ends up presenting through that browser experience online. Okay, so that's a very quick review of how forms are built, but what is actually happening behind the scenes? We have things like data tables. Okay, this is an inbuilt list of colors, color codes, hex codes, such that when you pick a color, SOLIDWORKS knows what to do with it. Okay, that's just an internal table. We have different options for mounting. So these are just examples of capturing different types of logic. Okay, in this case, in a tabular format. Okay, you asked about processes and workflows. This project has all sorts of macros in it. Okay, what happens when we click the purchase button? Well, we're going to insert some stuff in the SQL, insert some other stuff in the SQL, and we're going to say, hey, process this job. What happens when we navigate? When we hit the navigation button, that's going to trigger a certain activity. That activity has some logic in it that is using our ubiquitous rules builder to define what that logic is. If we need to cancel a spec, we're just going to run our little cancel macro, et cetera, et cetera. So these are just little isolated chunks of activity, sequences of utility that we can run under very specific circumstances at the right time, for the right reason, et cetera, et cetera. Again, you need to, let's see, update your Vault system as a result of running this macro. Great. Add that functionality here, connect it in, boom. That capability has just been added. You're going to need to fill out some properties here, but that's about it. And that's how we build a process. Okay, the underlying workflow that defines the picture frame project starts like this. You arrive in the configurator. You arrive at an initial starting point. That is right here. Okay. I click that submit button. If I click the purchase button and say, tell the system, okay, time to get to work. It's going to bring itself to the processing state, and then when all the processing activity is done, I have a list of things that are going to happen here. As part of that, when that's done, it's going to move itself to this state, and then it's going to make, when all that activity is done, also, we're going to send out emails, release the models, et cetera, et cetera. Then we'll move it to this state, or if DriveWorks determines, maybe we run it back to that initial state. Okay. So again, the world's fastest review of what a workflow can look like. But the point is that all this is drag and drop. All these connections are done with a mouse. Whoops, I'm probably going to damage something there. What happens at any given point when you enter, when you leave the state, if you hit save, or you hit submit, what exactly happens when, why, what it impacts, all that is done, again, with a mouse. Okay. And with a little bit of training from someone like TPM, you can be on your way to creating just the right solution for your business. In this case, this is in the context of a configurable product. I'm going to close that so I don't actually end up saving that. all the better that that custom work that I just hurriedly rushed through is available through a web-based system that allows you to interface with customers and salespeople in a very controlled environment. Okay, let's see, we've got a few minutes left. Okay, someone has a question about performance with large data sets. Example, over 75,000 customer records. So that's a good point, and performance is an issue with any kind of business system, DriveWorks included. If you think of DriveWorks as in the context of being a piece of middleware, let me bring up my slide to illustrate. Getting back to this concept here, where CPQ or PDM or ERP, these are all ancillary systems that have all sorts of records. You can have a database in the cloud, database on your servers, all sorts of connection points. So how is performance impacted by connecting to all these systems? Well, that's really a function of how the system is set up. Okay, so if in your CPQ system, you say, you know what, bring in all the records every time I start a new quote request. You know, when I see a list of contacts, I want you to show me all of them from the history of time. And if that's 75,000 options long and you have to see it, well, I guess maybe there's no way around that. But often case there are ways to limit the data that you need to pull in. So maybe you don't need to pull in your archive customers. Maybe you don't need to pull in customers in Zimbabwe. Maybe you don't need to pull in customers that only purchase product category X. You know, you can start to smartly filter what kind of data you bring into DriveWorks to thereafter process and what kind of data you send out. Okay. So I think the answer to any sort of performance issue is really in approaching this in the most intelligent way possible. That's going to be different for every use case, for every user. But the good news is that DriveWorks implicitly gives you the ability to have those types of controls. Okay, good question. What else do we have here? A couple more minutes. Let's see. Okay, I think that's all the questions, and it's actually probably because we're just past 12, so sadly our time has come to an end today. But again, I encourage you to be in touch if you have any more questions. Again, this session has been recorded, so it will be available to access in the future. If you need to send it along to others in your business or other contacts, we'll be happy to allow for that. Feel free to follow up with me directly if you'd like to talk more about DriveWorks. And of course, we will once again set up a follow-up email with a review of everything that you've seen here today. Okay. Thanks again, everyone, for your time. It's been great. We love talking about DriveWorks. I hope you enjoyed it, and hopefully it piqued your interest. And we'd love to hear about how you think it might be applicable to your business. Okay. With that, have a good day. Have a good week. We'll be in touch soon. Thank you.